Monday at BBC Three Counties Radio. This is Ben Jones, and the star of the Narnia films and the current movie Killing Bono, Ben Barnes, is still here. What would you normally be doing on a bank holiday Monday?
I might be in the gym with you.
Would you?
We could have had a gym date.
Would you be doing any DIY? Are you a DIY expert? Are you a DIY disaster zone?
I'm a DIY disaster zone. I think I'm very good at the kind of I'm very good at the alternative side of housekeeping, though.
Ringing people up and getting them to do it for you?
No, I'm very good at tidying up and washing up and
really? I've been
rearranging cushions and stuff.
When do you do that?
When my brother's not around.
Now, we have to talk about the big film franchise which you have been part of for a number of years, and people will instantly recognise your face from the Narnia posters and most recently The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which I think is out now on DVD and Blu-ray and stuff.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
Well, it came as a direct link from doing the History Boys. They've been looking for about a year or two, I think, and they've been looking in lots of different countries because they wanted Prince Caspian to have a kind of Mediterranean accent. They wanted the Telmarines to have that kind of Mediterranean feel. So they've been looking in South America and Spain and Italy and France as well for actors, and not quite finding what they were looking for, I think. And then they decided to open it up to British actors and American actors. And one of the casting directors actually saw me in the History Boys and asked me to come in for an audition, and I did. And I screen tested for the directors and producers. It was all happened much quicker than I ever expected it could. And
tell us a little bit about that phone call when it came through, and I think it was in the middle of the night that you got this job, that you were going to be Prince Caspian.
It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was fast asleep, but I knew this call would be coming at some point in the next day or two.
And it was either going to be a yes or a no.
Fully expecting the worst, yeah, because I think they'd narrowed it down at that point to 2 or 3 people. I think 2 by the end. As is the way, they like to make it very dramatic for you. And I was sort of fully expecting them to say no. And my agent, I could hear him out of breath because he'd been jumping up and down with excitement, like having received the phone call from the studio saying that I got it. He then called me, and I could hear him out of breath. I said, "Why are you out of breath?" He goes, "I've been jumping around with excitement." And I think it's safe to say I did not get back to sleep that night.
Unbelievable. And the film.
And actually, I saw my mum. Actually, I called my mum and met up with her straight away, and she'd bought me a camera as a present, to say this is to take pictures in New Zealand because I knew you'd get it. You know, I bought it preemptively. I thought,
God
fantastic.
Bless mums. The faith they have in their sons and daughters, eh? So the film was a huge... I mean, how much kind of money did a film like that... What was the budget for that?
You could say, how much money did you get for that? That's where I thought you were going. I was like, pushing it, Jones.
What was the budget for? I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions for a film like that, aren't we?
Yes, I mean, Prince Caspian was the most expensive of the Narnia movies because we moved continents whilst we were filming. We got new crew. I think that's the very expensive thing about making a film on that scale is not, obviously sets and crews, but if you then, sort of decide to up and move the entire production from New Zealand to Europe, it costs an absolute fortune. I think the budget of that one was, certainly sort of 250 million or something.
My word.
Staggering.
And there must be a huge amount of pressure on you as a relative newcomer to this film industry, that this film was called Prince Caspian and you were playing Prince Caspian.
Absolutely. I mean the script and the film itself was more of an ensemble piece than the poster suggested. And actually the poster, the first time the producer showed me that, was glorious and terrifying at the same time, because I was like, you're basically marketing this on my face and the name of my character. And I thought, well, I'm only in about half of it. People are going to feel cheated here. And I was a bit concerned because I thought they might think it was a sort of big hero, traditional kind of hero story, kind of rags to riches kind of a boy to man defeating the enemy kind of story, and it's not traditional in that way. C.S. Lewis doesn't write kind of stories that are traditional in that way. They're kind of very roving, and they're about, you know, adolescence and growing up and the relationships you make along the way, and so I was a bit concerned about that at the time, but I also had in the back of my mind that I knew I'd be doing The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which was my favourite book when I was 8. And I knew I'd be playing the king on board the ship and be in charge. And I sort of had that in the back of my mind when I sort of took on the job in the first place.
So weird, though, to see yourself on a huge, great billboard driving down Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. Or, I mean, it was weird for me as a friend of yours to see you on the Jay Leno show. I mean, the surreal moments that you have to probably pinch yourself, even as a viewer, but let alone to go out there with that band and Jay's there doing a show he's done for donkey's years, you know, millions of people watching.
That was a staggering moment. I was doing press for about 3 or 4 months for that particular film, and that was the absolute highlight, because you get a call from somebody before you go on a show like that to kind of talk you through what you might talk about, and I was excited at that point, let alone when I actually went on. So you have a vague idea what he might bring up, but you know, it's not rehearsed or planned or anything like that. And then you walk on and the band is playing. My palms were sweating, and I had Evangeline Lilly from Lost sitting next on one side, and then Jay Leno just staring at my face. Absolutely terrifying. And when you leave, they give you a little sort of goodie bag, and it has a I don't know what it actually was. I thought it was a dressing gown with Jay Leno written on it. The Tonight Show Joe. It wasn't a dressing gown when you open it up. I call it my TV watching blanket, because it's got a little pocket in the bottom for your feet to go in, and then a little sort of pocket in the top, which I put the remote in when you watch TV.
Wow.
But I don't know if that's what it's for. But that's what I.
Unless it's a flannel for a giant's face. Unless
it's a giant, yeah, or a sort of an enormous, oversized. Hot water bottle cover or something.
Now, someone else that you've become quite good pals with over the last couple of years, having worked with him twice now, is Colin Firth, and he's become almost like your advisor, really, hasn't he?
When he answers his phone, he is. Yeah.
Giving you some. Well, now I'm sure it's impossible to get him to answer the phone, but he really took you under his wing, didn't he? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we didn't have very much on screen time in Easy Virtue, in which he plays my dad. But the few little moments we did have came very, very easily, didn't need rehearsals, and were sort of some of the most natural, easy moments in the film.
And in Dorian Gray, the way he manipulates you on screen, I would imagine you had quite fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He would mercilessly tease me, but it was just great that we'd finished Easy Virtue, and then this opportunity came up, and we both kind of jumped at it straight away, not only because they're both great parts in Dorian Gray, but also because we kind of wanted to build on that sort of chemistry that we'd found in Easy Virtue, and it was a great filming process for Dorian Gray, because for half the film, Lord Henry Wotton, his character, has all the power and is quite manipulative of kind of Dorian's life, and those days he would kind of be mercilessly teasing me and mocking me, you know, in between takes, and sending me to fetch him cups of tea and things, because he likes to lord it over me. But then the sort of second half of the film, Dorian is the one who hasn't aged, so he's the one with all the power, and Colin, you know, was in the old makeup, playing a sort of much more fragile old man, and so that was sort of my opportunity to get my own back, really, and call him Grandad and ask him if he wanted a seat, and so the tables did turn.
And have you spoken to him post the worldwide success of the King's Speech?
Yes, I've been asking him why he did 2 films with me, and then immediately decided to go and get nominated for an Oscar twice, and asking why he couldn't have done that in a film that I was in.
And what would you?
And then he said, and then he tells me I'm a curse for him, so he can't work with me again.
So what with the current Narnia movie Dawn Treader being out on DVD and Blu-ray, what do you remember of that shoot?
Well, you get those moments. I had a moment on Prince Caspian where I went on the back lot of Barrandov Studios in Prague, and they'd built a castle, an entire full-scale stone castle. and I walked in through these doors expecting it to sort of be balsa wood behind, and it absolutely was solid and real and magnificent, and you feel so very, very tiny in those moments. And then you remember your character name is on the poster, and you swallow quite hard. And I had a series of moments like that for shooting The Dawn Treader, because I remembered these books from when I was 8 and the TV series, and when they used to, because we filmed a lot of this one to keep the budget down. We filmed it within the studio in Australia, rather than moving to lots of different locations. And what they were capable of building. And they pull back the hangar doors to these studios, and you would see these this magician's garden of hedges and little rolling hills, or on the backlot they built an entire sort of market town square in which we had a big sort of fight sequence, and another massive bell tower with huge statues and enormous ringing bells, and it kind of. They based a lot of the set designs and a lot of the imagery for the film on Pauline Bain's original illustrations for the Narnia books, and so it kind of had this feeling of nostalgia for me, even though it was a new experience, which was quite odd. But to be filming in Australia, wielding a sword, playing the kings, on board a ship. We never actually went in the water, actually. Because the ship was built, a huge, life-size, enormous ship, but on a gimbal on a peninsula, so it was basically a massive remote control ship.
Wow.
So they could move it vertically, horizontally, twist it around as if it was riding on the waves. And that was a sort of extraordinary experience.
Well, listen, people should see it for themselves, because it's out on DVD and Blu-ray now, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Ben, thank you very much for coming in.
No, pleasure.
And
Thanks for
if you
having
missed
me.
any of the interview, you can listen to it again on the BBC iPlayer.